This is Prateek, a corporate professional who has built an individual portfolio of 6 crore rupees.
So coming from a very middle class background,
His journey had its own hurdles. Before corporate life and the sizable Corpus, there was a failed attempt at starting his own business.
I earned good money also for the first 3 to 4 months. But then what I realized is I am still lacking the core skills to scale the business.
That setback pushed him to upskill and start again. Years later, with 2 kids, his goal today is to secure his family's future.
I started with amount of 15 to 18,000 rupees. Now I am investing around 1.8 to 2 lakhs per month.
Let's take a closer look at how his journey unfolded. Hi Prateek, welcome to Power Up Money. We're very excited to host you on this podcast. Would love to understand, where did you grow up? What was your upbringing years like? What was your relationship with money when you were growing up?
There is a place called as Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh. My parents live there, but my upbringing and my whole school time I spent in a place called as Balko Korba. So coming from a very middle class background, I have seen how to basically save money, right? So my father used to work in a company called as Balco, Bharat Aluminium Company Limited. So my relationship with money, I have seen him struggling. When I say struggling, that essentially means to make sure that children gets good education, good background. I mean, that kind of era I have seen where he used to cycle just to save some money and then, put it in the bank. And that helped me to get a great perspective on setting up the priorities in life, right? Like kids' education is P0. You cannot, bargain on that. You cannot compromise on that. Good quality food, comfort life is another P0. So that has been my relationship with money. Okay. Even now, I follow it very, wholeheartedly.
So very early on, of course, you learned these things, and it's so great that you were able to extend it to, your adult life also. So what was your education like, Prateek? Where did you study? When did you move out of Bilaspur?
Post that, I did my graduation, BTech from a college called Sri Shankaracharya College of Engineering and Technology, which is in Durg. I was not a computer science there. I was in IT, Information and Technology. I figured out that if you are from a normal college, then probably you have to, work very hard to earn good money. That was a time when I saw few of my seniors who appeared for GATE examination and then went for IITs. So I also tried for IITs after my 12th, but I was unable to crack during that time. What I did was I studied last 2 to 3 semesters very seriously, but then I could not hold a position in any of the IITs. Then that was the time around 2010 when I came to Hyderabad. I just came to Hyderabad with something to do. Like maybe I will try to set up a business. I will talk to people, figure out what they have done in life.
So this is like after your undergrad, you moved to Hyderabad to figure out what to do next.
What to do next, okay. Yeah. So that was a time when I did not hold command on any of the computer science areas because if you compare subjects in IT and computer science, the core 3 to 4 subjects are missing in IT. So for the first 4 months, went into figuring out what to do next. Then I tried to start something during 2010 when I thought that maybe taking education online is beneficial. So I started that. But during that time, even hosting a simple website was very costly. That was not the time where you just one-click deployment kind of thing used to even exist. Right. So I ran that for 1 or 2 months. So I was a tenant to a family, Jaiswal family. I even have very good relationship with them even now in Hyderabad. So they helped me to set up this business for some time. But then I earned good money also for the first 3 to 4 months. But then what I realized is I am still lacking the core skills to scale the business. Okay. From the technical front, from a business perspective as well. So that was the time when I joined GATE coaching in Hyderabad. And then I was able to secure a good rank in GATE. And then I got admission to IIT Guwahati. When I was getting admission to IIT Guwahati, I had a feeling that, okay, everything is set. I have read GATE, I have qualified. But then I went there and met few people, right, who are way beyond me, right? They were coming from good college. The knowledge which I used to have, I thought it is so great for me to get into good companies. But my dreams were completely shattered.
Proved wrong. Okay.
Yeah, proved wrong. So again, I started making friends there, built a great network in the first year itself. And then again, I started moving around my career. So I learned a lot of skills from my friends. But then since my my school time, I was very much fond of acquiring skills which can make money, right? So I got placed there itself in a company called as Cisco Systems, and that's where my corporate journey started.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that brings me to the question that if you could take us through your career, what year did you work at which company and what did your salary progression look like?
So I graduated from Guwahati. That was around 2013. I usually do not forget dates. 5th of August was my joining time at Cisco. So there I worked for around 2.8 years. And then if you just average out the salary, it used to come around 40 to 45 in hand. Then after working there for 2.8 months, I moved in a company called as Aruba Networks, which is a part of HPE now. There was a short stint for me. It was around 10 to 11 months. So if you average it out again, it will come around 85 to 90K. After that, I moved to Juniper Networks. There I worked for around 4.8 years again. Again, if you average it out for those many 5 years, it will come around 1.2 to 1.3, somewhere around that. And a lot of things happened in that career experiences. Like I had my first kid in 2018, and then after Juniper Networks, I moved to Microsoft. If you again average it out for like 4.8 years, 4.3 years, it will come around maybe 2.2 to 2.4 kind of thing around 2021. And then I was there for 4 years and 3 months, 4.3 years.
Okay.
And then I am here at a company called as Nasuni, which is in Hyderabad.
So apart from your current company, what was your last round salary at your previous company?
Yeah, so my last round salary was around 2.7, somewhere around 2.7 to 2.8.
So how did you manage to have such great salary progressions, Prateek? And I'm sure our audience would love to understand because you started at about 45,000. Of course, you've built a corpus of 6 crores and your salary has progressed quite a bit. So did you do anything special or was it just like a natural progression of time?
So one habit which stayed with me since my school time is people say we should not compare and all of that. I mean, to an extent, everything is required. So I always used to see what others are doing differently compared to what I am doing, why they are at a spot where I can be. What are those diff between those two things, right? So what kept me here for the salary progression is I always used to see what a person is bringing on the table when he is or she is joining Microsoft, right? So that skill gap I always used to cover within
So
me.
you have consistently upskilled yourself.
I have consistently upskilled myself.
Okay. So let's now talk about your first investment. Like, did you start investing as soon as you started earning or did that come a little later?
That was around 2013 when I, came out of the shifting of my life from, a typical academic student to a corporate corporate employee.
And mostly, like, what asset classes did you started investing in?
During that time also, it was a mix of 3 things. Like I used to do FDs, and the way I used to build corpus for FDs, I wanted to play safe there again, was from recurring deposits. And then I used to go for mutual funds, and then I used to go for certain ULIPs, like maybe just for the sake of having diversification.
And how did the investments sort of change over time? For example, what kind of allocation did you start with and what kind of asset allocation do you have in your portfolio today?
It has changed, of course, but not much. Like the only 2-3 life events which happened, because of that only I changed my asset allocation.
Okay.
So 2014 to 2018, the only asset allocation I was focusing on was mutual funds. But then 2018, since my kid was born, I had to make a very healthy balance between riskier investment plus safer investment, right? That was the time I started investing very heavily on FDs because I wanted to make sure that everything is fixed there. Plus, I started purchasing a lot of policies only for my son's education.
Okay.
I know that policy might be giving me only maybe 8% returns, but again, as long as income is guaranteed, that's what the perspective was to.
So what does your asset allocation look like today? Like how much is it in mutual funds, stocks, FD, etc.?
So my allocation today looks like somewhere around 30% is FD, 35 to 40% is mutual funds plus stocks.
Okay.
The remaining is like real estate, plus sovereign gold bonds, plus government schemes, PPF, EPF.
Got it. Yeah. But you also mentioned that when you started investing, it was in mutual funds.
Correct.
So how do you pick the mutual funds that you want to invest in?
See, I have a trade-off to make there. I am not an expert in mutual funds and market. So what I think is, if I put 1 hour in my mutual fund research or stock research, compared to if I put 1 hour into my own domain, probably I should be able to increase my salary if I do the latter.
Okay.
Right? So all my investments are run in autopilot mode. I
Okay.
do invest some time there, but
Hmm.
it's not as huge as others might be doing.
Okay.
So I totally.
But with a stock portfolio also, you're like a passive investor and
I am a
not
passive
like
investor for
okay.
stocks as well.
But in stocks, like, don't you need to be a little more active, or have you identified companies you want to stay invested in for the long term and then
Correct. So
you're
I would,
sorted?
categorize myself more as a long-term investor.
Okay.
So that's the reason whenever I'm picking any stock,
Hmm.
I am absolutely sure that after 20 years, my
Hmm.
money is going to grow for sure.
Okay.
I mean, that's the reason I am investing in maybe 10 plus stocks. Even if like 3 or maybe 4 fails, the other
Right.
6 will basically cover for that.
Got
So
it.
that
So these are
cushion we
high
can have.
conviction stocks that you've
Correct.
invested in.
Correct.
So also, I would love to understand, Prateek, like, how has your mindset to investing changed after expanding your family? Because you also mentioned that you have 2 kids now.
Yeah. So mindset shift, right? I would like to quote this going into the real estate as an example for me. So if you would have spoken to me maybe let's say 1.5 years from now, I had zero presence in real estate. But then that was again planned. The real estate prices were so much booming around 2016, 2017. It was very high. And I know that I am not going to stay at some place forever. That's the reason I never invested in real estate.
Okay.
But I would like to quote an example. So there is a family which stays in front of my apartment. So what I heard when I shifted is their father unfortunately passed away in an accident like 2 years
Okay.
before. But then they recently moved into a new house, right? So that gave me a very different perspective that, what if that person would not have, booked that flat for the family? So that actually pulled me into the real estate. That
Okay.
at least to, tick one box that, okay, I have one house. I very recently purchased one flat in Hyderabad.
And this has only been done in the last 1.5 years.
Last 1.5 years. And then since my kids are there, to be honest, we can't really predict what lies in the future, right? Down the line 20 years, they might be doing good, they might be exploring, they can be struggling, we do not know, right? So for that, to safeguard that, I really wanted to invest in some real assets. And to me, real estate more looks like a wealth creation option, again if you choose the spot and location properly.
Okay.
With all the checks done. I mean,
Okay.
that is a disclaimer which I would like to always quote. So that triggered me to build a good portfolio in real estate as well.
And today your corpus stands at about 6 crore rupees, right?
Correct.
So what would you say are those top 2-3 things that have really helped you achieve this corpus?
Top 2-3 things. First thing is always consistency. I started doing it in 2014 very seriously, and I have kept on increasing that amount even now. Second thing is you cannot really time the market with mutual funds or stocks. What matters is for how much of time you are there, right? So you always have to be very patient. There will be again exceptions, like somebody invested 10 lakhs and that become like maybe 1 CR, but that will not happen for 99% of the people, right? So you have to be in a long-term game.
Right.
And the third thing, which is a very differentiating factor for me, is always try to upgrade your skill sets. I mean, look at this, right? I mean, if your salary is not increasing, right? If you look at percentage point of view, you may be drawing maybe 20% return. But if you're investing only 1 lakh, you will be able to make only 1.2 of it, right? So unless and until your salary is increasing or your primary income is increasing, building corpus does not really, makes much sense.
How much did you used to invest every month when you started out, and how much do you invest on a monthly basis now?
So when I started with amount of 15 to 18,000 rupees. That kept on growing. Like when I was in Cisco, I used to do around 18K. When I entered Aruba, I increased it to around 30K. Then when I moved out to Juniper Networks, it went from 30K to somewhere around 60K. And then when I joined Microsoft, it took a good jump around 60K to maybe 1.2 per month. And then now I think even now I am investing around 1.8 to 2 lakhs per month.
That's
in
incredible.
SIP, yeah.
Right. So one, I would say, criticism that people receive with high salaries is that building a large corpus with higher salaries is very easy. What would you say to something like that?
I mean, of course it is easy. I mean, that's why we all are here, right? IIT people go to IIT, right? They easily crack 1 CR to 2 CR pack, but that's not the ground reality. Ground reality is like you're talking to the ground reality person who cracked the job at day 3 and then was offered around 40K to 45K per month.
But I mean, another way to look at it is that salaries in IT, and I'm not saying it happens like that for everyone. Of course, you have to upscale, of course, you have to be at it, but salaries in IT are generally higher. For example, there are a lot of other fields where the salary progression, even if you're very good at your work, it does not increase so much.
Correct.
So I think this perspective also comes from there. But
Correct.
would you say that the amount that you're spending has so much
Correct.
value that only that can build out a corpus, or are there other things?
So the other thing is your spending habits
Hmm.
and the kind of lifestyle you are choosing,
Hmm.
right? I think that should be thought even before saying that people with high salary
Right.
can build a great corpus, and that is
Yeah.
true to an extent. That's why I always ask people to upskill themselves, because I mean, if primary income is not increasing, you can never build secondary income.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you have to leave the job and do something else other than 9 to 5. But if
Right.
you want to be in 9 to 5 and build a great corpus, primary income has to be increased.
Right. No, makes sense. So, Prateek, also want to understand, how do you manage household expenses? What do they look like on a monthly basis? Can you break that down for us?
So what I generally do is, to have that sake of clarity, I maintain a very separate bank account only for household expenses. So
Okay.
let's say my salary comes, out of which 20% goes to another bank account directly, which is only for household expenses that evolved during the life events. Like during 2014 to 2018, average expense was around 30K only, 30K to 40K. Then I had first kid 2018, then that raised to around 60K. Then I also have now second kid. She is now 1 year, 1 month. That raised to 80K. And then now I am sitting somewhere around 1 lakh to 1.2 lakh expenses per month.
So, how do you also plan on sponsoring your kids' education? What is the investment planning for that?
So I think I would also classify me. I think I clarified earlier that I'm a goal-based investor. I have two aspects to it. The first aspect is, every year I keep on purchasing policy. Like today, maybe if I'm purchasing Smart Scholar from SBI, I would purchase something else tomorrow just to have diversification at that level.
Okay.
And the second aspect is, do goal-based investing in mutual fund and stocks. So I generally prefer a mix of large cap plus small cap, because kids' education is going to be very heavy down the line after 10 years. So
Right.
that goal is still a long term for me, not a very short term goal. So
Okay.
that's why there are two aspects to it.
So, where did you acquire this knowledge from of where to invest, and what would you tell our audience to, which kind of resources they can refer to?
So there was no single resource, to be honest. So what I used to do is, even now I put one particular stock in some websites like Screener, or there are others also like Dhan, which will screen the stocks for you, right?
Right.
So I just used to pick one keyword. I used to do research about it. Like for example, ROE as a parameter, right? What exactly ROE is. So one important parameter which I learned is, for mutual funds, how much fund managers are actually investing into that fund, right? So that give you a good kind of a score on how confident a fund manager is while choosing a stock, right? Similarly, for stocks also, like what is the kind of promoter holdings in that particular stock, right? What is the kind of percentage holder for FIIs, right? So that will give you a good view on how confident the promoters are in that particular company. And if you just are consistent in that analysis, there will be a day which will come where you will know all the aspects of investing. Yeah.
So that confidence just comes slowly.
That confidence
just keep
comes
researching
slowly.
and
Yes.
then you will. Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah. I mean, thank you so much, Prateek, for joining us today. It was such an insightful conversation. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thanks for the invitation. Thanks for inviting me.